Why are so many people joining ICF? Why are so many people joining coach training organizations? It is because coaching works. And how do we know that coaching works? We are priding ourselves, we ICF, on conducting a lot of research. You heard mentions of our research with PricewaterhouseCoopers, with Human Capital Institute, and several other organizations. And with PwC, we conduct this survey about global coaching awareness. You might have noticed that early this year we released the most recent study, and it was over 30,000 people who responded to that survey around the globe. It was offered in 17 languages. And this is an interesting one because it is not directed at coaches. It goes through PwC offered technology to any consumer who happens to be on their list of people who are willing to occasionally answer surveys. So they were not pre-selected, they responded. Before we did this study with people 25 years of age or older. That was the recommendation of PwC because that group of people seemed to have the greatest purchasing power. That changed. So we started including 18 and older in our research. But I think that what's really interesting is that that was the fourth survey that we did, the first in 2010, and I will show you a little bit later these absolutely amazing results of that. Some things will not be surprising to you, and this is why people engage coaches. I'm pretty sure you see exactly the reasons that you are being contacted by your clients to work with them. And also we see that the outcome, Robert was talking a little bit about ROI and ROE, it seems that the outcome very closely matches the reasons why people join coaches and work with coaches. So this is where it starts getting really interesting. We did this survey for the first time in 2010. And you know that saying that the good lawyer never asks the question they don't know the answer to? Well, we didn't know the answer. And the question was, are you aware of professional coaching? And already then, we were actually we were very happy with ourselves because back in 2010, 51% of respondents said, yes, we are familiar with professional coaches and professional coaching. However, not a very large percentage responded that they already participated in professional coaching. Well, since it changed pretty dramatically. So in this most recent survey, so it was conducted last year, released early this year, 73% responded. Remember, 30,000 people responded to the survey. 73% responded that they were familiar with professional coaching. So look at the acceleration of how coaching is taking hold. The fact that we are present in 166 countries, that's just amazing. So being curious, we ask our colleagues from PwC, as they do this kind of surveys for many, many different industries and organizations, we ask them, have you seen this pace of the increase in awareness? They said, no. Not in the recent history for sure. So, and as we said, still so many members join ICF. So I think that the pace is not slowing down at all. We are growing leaps and bounds. We add about 12,000 people every year to the ranks of ICF. Angie mentioned something about the number of credentials when she first joined. Well, I have a little longer history of ICF than Ms. Angie here. When I first started, almost 17 years ago, there were 8,000 members of ICF, 8,000. And look where we are. And credentials, about 1,000. So this is absolutely amazing. And that is happening because of people like you, people who want to engage, people who want to become coaches, and people who want to bring ICF to the next level. So as you can also see, the experience was rather positive, because 86% responded that they were satisfied or very satisfied with their experience. And also, back to Robert's presentation about valuing coaching, it seems that employees and employers alike are really valuing coaching as important modality. Recently, I was talking to my favorite General Tom Colditz, and he started using vocabulary that I absolutely loved. And I immediately ran to my marketing team saying like, from now on, because what Tom said is coaching is a strategy. And it is. It's kind of like, oh, why didn't we think about it earlier, right? But it is. It is a business proposition and it is a strategy. And I think we shouldn't be shy to be saying that because we have data to prove it as well. Credentialing and affiliation, there was several people already said it is important to be credentialed coach. Ebony especially talked about it. Get your grade, right? And it matters because more and more people expect their coach to be credentialed and or at least belong to professional organization. So again, thank you for being members and credentialed members. What do we see? Because again, back to what Ebony said, it is so important for the organization of our statute anymore in the world to try to be a little bit ahead of the curve, right? Because we have to try to anticipate and try to anticipate trends in order to be able to find some possible solutions and answers when something becomes reality. So we are looking into what's happening. And we did, you hopefully some of you participated, we did several surveys at the very beginning of a pandemic and then 6 months later. And we started to see, and then there was also an addition from the awareness study. And what we saw were several things. For many of us in North America, virtual coaching perhaps was not that unusual. In many parts of the world, it was not before the pandemic. Many coaches still worked in person, especially in organizations. Even phone coaching was not very popular, if you will. Anymore, after the pandemic, it seems that it was not necessarily coaches that were not ready for virtual coaching. The clients were not. And organizational clients, well, like we all, they thought, it's gonna, 3 more weeks and we're gonna be back to normal. Let's just pause coaching and then we'll see what happens. Well, it didn't go away. So anymore, this coaching virtually seems to be something to stay. And for many of people from the areas where virtual coaching was not the thing yet, now they are excited about it because it broadens, but I think it's true for all of us when the client is ready for it, because it expands the market, right? Suddenly, and many of you probably do coach people in other countries, other cultures, and now it's even more available because of that greater acceptance of that modality by the clients. And some of our colleagues from other geographies, again, think that can help with their economic situation because they can work with somebody in completely different geography and be able to generate an income. The other things that we start seeing as trends was team coaching, and it was already stated about team coaching competencies developed by ICF. We are getting ready to develop actually a credential in team coaching. It's coming soon. The other one, we ask our new members, we ask them, despite Janet's earlier statement about what specialty you would self-identify, and some of you may or may not remember, but when I joined ICF, ICF was not treated seriously by some other organizations or fields because that was a little bit too esoteric. It was all this life coaching thing, California, whatever. And over the years, as we do research our members, we started seeing the pendulum going completely to the opposite direction. So business, executive, organizational, leadership, you name it. And what we noticed since the pandemic, that we get a little shift back into life vision and enhancement coaching. But I think that more and more people would agree with Janet. The label doesn't matter. Many of people who previously would say, oh, I'm an executive coach. You talk to them recently and they say, you know what, these execs, they are coming for life coaching because that's what they need most right now. The execs come and say, hey, how can I be a good executive while I am dealing with so many things with my family, with the kids being at home and trying to help them learn and all this good stuff. So again, professional coach is that person that meets the client where they need them the most, right? And then finally, the pro bono coaching. Coaching in general, I think that the coaching field is an extremely, extremely generous group. Janet talked about it. Dory talked about it. There is no competition. And there is also a little space for that giving back, right? All the leaders of this chapter, you are all giving back. Janet served on only too many boards for me to remember. I'm a volunteer in my professional organization. So that giving back in terms of coaches often comes with the pro bono opportunities. During the pandemic, as we all know, there were some people who were very, very heavily impacted by the pandemic, either because they were first responders or the healthcare professionals, or because their livelihood was significantly challenged by the circumstances of the pandemic. So many coaches say like, okay, I certainly can devote some of my time because that's the best way I know how to help. And that trend seems to be continuing. Angie was talking about the requirements for credentialing, and we have that allotment for pro bono hours versus paid. We even changed that ratio for the time of the pandemic. And so many coaches now tell us, you know what, I don't care, I'm still gonna do it because it's a good thing to do. So what else do we see in the environment? Team coaching, already too much said about it. New credentialing exam, Angie talks you all about it. What is happening though is that our credentials, almost 50,000 people around the globe holding an active ICF credential. I want to make it absolutely clear that these are people who are in Angie's database. They are good. They're good people. They are getting Christmas present. But and by the way, she said that ICF and chapter is like a family. If you did not receive something made by Angie, you are only second cousin. Just saying. But what is really important is, especially for our credential, to have such a credibility and notoriety, I would almost say, is that we have to make sure that it is the highest quality there is. That's why we did our review of core competencies. That's why we have a new exam. That's why we are looking into new ways of evaluations, proctored examination. These are all signals of very professional credentialing program. It doesn't matter what the content. We are doing two things. We are trying to be as true to the content, and coaching is evolving, so that content is evolving, and to the methodology of credentialing. And this is why for some time now we've been working on getting the accreditation by the external bodies, that being the International Standards Organization, and in North America, NCCA, which sometimes we say NCAA because that would be basketball and that would be UK. But this is important. We say that credentialing program first and foremost exists to protect the client, right? So let's make sure that we're doing everything that we can and should to protect the client. It also is the developmental tool, of course, for a coach. So yes, let's make sure that when we take somebody through MCC process, it is worth it, because and it's delivered in a fair and equitable way. And also one of the definition for the credible credentialing program is that it needs to be defensible. And people sometimes just shake their heads. Defensible? What do you mean? Several of you mentioned that more and more there is a requirement in bids and tenders for ICF credential. So if somebody does not have that credential, they may claim that they are denied earning money. If we deny the credential, we have to have a darn good reason to do that and darn good process to explain why credential was or was not awarded. That's becoming more and more serious as some large organizations and, as mentioned before, governmental organizations are seriously requiring ICF credential. So this is really important, and this obtaining the ISO and CCA accreditation is important from one other angle. As you know, and it has been stated even by Susan in the opening, that coaching is self-regulating profession, and it is. Having said that, we always hear little rumblings here and there about the attempts to regulate the profession. I'll be blasphemous. Janet knows, typically I share my first blasphemy by about 10 in the morning. It's almost 5. But it may at some point be useful for coaching to be regulated, right? We still know that there are those people who are calling themselves coaches and they have little to do with what we would call coaching. Term coaching, unregulated. We can't do anything about it, especially that we borrowed the term from somebody else. So, should there be some kind of regulation either imposed on us, and that's always the fear, right? Something spectacularly bad happens, and then you have a regulation coming your way. But if and when we decide that it's good, what's better sign of a credible professional coach than somebody holding a credential that is accredited but by ISO? We would be the only body, credentialing body in coaching that would hold that ISO standard 17024. I dream about it every day. So, and I know that these things are happening a little bit behind the scenes and behind the closed doors. That's why I'm telling you about it, so you know what we're busy with, all those 80 people in the office. Coaching for social impact. I think Janet beautifully brought it to our attention at the closing of her speech, and this is something that is really becoming more and more prevalent. ICF Foundation with its Ignite project. Do you guys have Ignite project? Misha, you do. That's right. So Ignite projects is exactly finding the organization where leaders need support in delivering value to the populations that they are working with. And then, you know, we know that these projects are bringing tremendous impact to the communities and societies. We actually have a research project going on with the foundation that is looking specifically into social value. We were also talking about the Thought Leadership Institute and how this particular family organization is trying to tackle all these big issues for the future, including, and that's the UN action plan for people, planet, and prosperity. And you know, when I first started with ICF, I think even then it was primarily one-on-one coaching, right? Then it started becoming more accepted in organizations, even if remedial at first, and even if reserved for C-suite people only. But then there was government adopting coaching, and now we see that wave of not-for-profit organizations. The term fairly frequently recently used is third sector. So not-for-profits, charities, foundations, blah, blah. And coaching starts becoming a thing for them. That's a huge sector and growing really, really fast. So I think that this is brilliant that we see such an opening for coaching in social sector. Who doesn't talk about artificial intelligence and coaching? That's one of my favorite topics, actually. So I don't know how much time I get. But when AI started becoming a acronym that everybody understood, in the coaching field, I say there was both excitement and fear. When I heard at one conference when somebody was talking about artificial intelligence in application in coaching, and this particular speaker was talking about them, artificial intelligence, them. And it's like, okay, well, them are here already. Let's start with that. And they will stay. They will say, so let's just try to befriend. And this is what we definitely think. Artificial intelligence can significantly support the further and faster development of coaching. Will it lead to some changes in our competencies even and in our standards? Sure, but that's living in the day and that trying to look into the future right now. So. Robert actually covered it. We are creating that coalition talking about the standards for coaching platforms and also the application of AI in coaching. Joel Joel DiGirolamo, director of VP of Coaching Science at ICF, he and several external researchers did a really brilliant white paper on AI and technology in coaching. So this is a topic that we're going to stay with because, as I said, it's here to stay, and we just need to make sure that we influence the development in a way that is good for coaching and coaches. So we talked about it already. So this is real quick, but I wanted to let you know that there are so many other things happening in the coaching field. So diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and recently added belonging. This is something that, Janet, we talked about it. What was the term? DIJ fatigue, right? Everybody's talking about it, right? Everybody's talking about it, but how much is being done? So we had a task force for about a year and a half, trying to frame what do we talk about when we're talking about diversity, equity, belonging, and justice. And we basically talk about 3 levels. What does it mean for a coach to be aware, and how a coach can work with different populations and in different economies, and in there are so many definitions of diversity these days. Second, understanding that we as an organization have things to do and things to say about it. And finally, what does it mean for the profession of coaching? So Robert mentioned that we hired the director of the EIJ. We also created very recently a council that is an advisory body to ICF. To ICF board. We are not treating the EIJ as a separate column. We want it to be present in everything that ICF is doing. Some of you are familiar with the guide for coach educators that has been released. Somebody of you may be also familiar with some statements that we make as an organization, and also what we staff have to engage and accept and embrace in the same manner as we are part of the organization. So there was quite a lot of research being done about DIJ in ICF organization. So I'll presume that within maybe a couple of months we're going to have this report ready. And that's really a starting point for us, because before, that was another interesting question, because somebody said, well, ICF is not diverse. I said, yeah, give me one type of diversity and I promise you, I find you a coach who represents it. because we're in 166 countries, right? Second, somebody said, oh, DEIJ is such a US thing. We know darn well that it exists everywhere. It just looks differently, right? So again, it is not about the race. It is not about the recent unfortunate events. It's about how coaching is or is not addressing those issues. Much to Janet was bringing memories of Sir John Whitmore and his tremendous commitment to ecology. But this is where we're expanding, right? This is where we're seeing what didn't we address or what don't we know how to address in order to move forward. Systemic coaching, Janet mentioned a little bit about it, and it is recognizing, it's also reflected to some extent in one of the elements of the high coaching culture research, and it is that everybody in the organization has access to coaching. It does not mean that everybody will take on it, but they have access. Because believing that coaching just one individual, even the most brilliant person on earth, that person will be able to change completely the entire organization is probably unrealistic. So systemic coaching points into looking into a person or a team as a system. Every single one of us is a system and belongs to multiple systems. Believing that you can just take a person saying like, okay, when you come to the office, you're becoming this person and there is nothing that influences you that day. Your kid is sick, you deal with it after you finish work, right? And the same with division by division in the organizations. So having more awareness of systems, how systems react, especially to change, and how they brace up for change is something that's really important to know and embed in your own coaching. Another one that I'm very excited about is that we are in conversation with many other associations of professionals that are, I wouldn't say in our field, but they are on the periphery. For example, we've been, but see, here you are. We've been working with Association for Change Management professionals because there are so many connections between change management and coaching. Many change managers are actually training to become coaches. Many coaches, when they understand change process, they can support their clients in a better way. So how about that? You know, mindfulness, again, probably a term that's been overused, but we have a lot of conversations with the groups that deal with mindfulness about the connection between mindfulness and coaching as well. So to me, I am super excited about it because that means that we stepped away a little bit from the territorialism of coaching, but instead saying, if we can be a tool for somebody else, and if somebody else can be a tool for us, let's do it. That's great. I actually used a metaphor with Janet yesterday and she was laughing loud, so I'm going to repeat it. I said, if an actor can sing, does she or he take a job from a professional singer? No, right? They are bringing another ability to work with the client that would be useful to the client. So I'm super excited about it. You here work with universities on providing coaching, right? And this is actually something that is happening globally. That is bringing coaching to education. And there is this huge coalition. Right now, I think 120 universities around the globe that offer executive education that basically started bringing coaching to coach their first faculty, then their students, to help them graduate, to help them find jobs. And many of those organizations are committed to continue research on how successful those students are who had an ability to have a support from a coach. Rice University started this program and they were brilliant because they asked students, they said, who do you look up to? Who do you listen to? Other than, some band and name I don't know. but they listened to it. And they said upperclassmates. Okay. So what Rice University did, they offer coach training to students. However, they said in exchange, you're gonna coach your younger colleagues. They have 3 years of that program under their belt, phenomenally successful. And now Rice University and my favorite General Colditz, they started that coalition because what they say is institutions of higher education claim that by sheer fact of going through the program, somebody learns leadership skills. Actually not true. And Rice University did study on that, and it's a flat line, completely flat line. So their premise is we have to start building up those leaders early, as early as possible. And how about that being a part of the curriculum at the university, right? So, and coaching, as we know, is a phenomenal strategy to bring to building leadership skills in young people. So I think that this is another wave of a change. We were talking about that change has to happen. Janet, you mentioned that from the World Economic Forum, right? That change has to happen, and it has to happen in education as well. That may be just the beginning of that wave. And as I said, it is a global phenomenon at this point with this 120 globally representative organizations, universities around the globe. ESGs. Who mentioned the ESGs? You mentioned the ESGs, that's right. So ecology, social, and governance. So remember when it used to be corporate social responsibility. Now it's ES or social progress, and now it's ESG, and it's a talk that is everywhere, and it's a talk that I think if somebody that you're working with in organizations is not talking about it yet, they are behind. They are behind because maybe it was also you, Ebony, who mentioned that treaty that will come into effect in Europe 2023. That's going to be a mandatory reporting on ESGs. Already in some organizations, the quarterly earnings is not the mostly awaited report. It's the report on corporate social responsibility, soon to become ESG. So we actually started work, of course, through the foundation on ESGs, but ESGs mean so much more than ecology or even social. Governance, you would be surprised how many things come under the label of governance, including DEIJ. So we started working with our PR company on creating the major social media initiative that will talk about coaching being in support of each E, S, and G, and often at the same time. So something that we're paying keen attention to. Again, we are an association, but in the association world, that talk is happening as well. So beware. And finally, I know it's kind of funny to almost ended on a burnout. Refreshments are coming. But on a little bit of a more serious note, we see in many applications for research, we work with Institute of Coaching on supporting their scientific research programs, grants programs. And what came up in this last rendition primarily was artificial intelligence and burnout, and how coaching is helping burnout. Several interesting facets to it. Are we stepping into a field previously reserved for counseling, therapy, or psychology? So that's one. The other one is, are some fields or professions more prone to it than others? And the list of questions can grow and grow and grow. But where I want to take us is that coaches can burn out as well. And This is so important that coaches, so self-aware, right, everybody, have to pay attention to that, because you guys don't. So this is something very, very important. Like so many professionals will tell you, a good doctor will not go and operate on somebody when they are super sick with flu, right? And so on and so forth. You know what I'm talking about. And it is so important for coaches to take care of self and to make sure to have that how many minutes of a day to yourself, to stop in the middle of a day and have a breathing exercise, but also to recognize that burnout in yourself and sometimes recognize it in your colleague and friend and be able to bring it to their attention as well. So take good care of yourselves. And Janet will recognize it. We've been speaking at Words Value conference, something like that. And this is exactly what I was talking about earlier. You know, we see such an evolution of coaching from one-on-one application to maybe one and few, maybe a team, maybe a group, then going into managers and leaders using coaching skills. So that ripple effect of coaching happening as well. Team coaching, and now we're talking about this coaching cultures in organizations, right? Somewhat new concept. And finally, we're trying to see the significant social impacts because of coaching. So from micro 101 to a global impact of a coaching profession. So it is like 47 or 48 pounds of right, with the trees. So this is the impact that every single coach can have as well, working with different people and also creating that ripple effect of coaching. So what did we hear today? You know, just the headlines from Janet about regenerate, resonate, and radiate. We were talking about raising the roof, yeah? And that's exactly what we're trying to do with coaching and also with this organization through you. Reset. Many are ready, many don't know what to do. And again, we're not coming to a rescue. We are helping design the road forward. Thinking bigger, right? Not knowing maybe where we're going for the next 3 steps, but don't be shy about several more steps. Sometimes these two know, you know, we are talking about something new, something that we would like to do. And I said, I don't want to go from first floor to a second floor. I want to go to the top of Burj Khalifa, okay? That's where we want to go. And that thinking bigger, so about crazy and being a CEO, yeah, that happens. But I think it's important that we give ourselves that permission because we can. And the long game, exactly. It doesn't happen overnight. It may not happen for you overnight. It may not happen for your client overnight. And yet, it is happening. If you haven't seen the most recent annual report, Elevate, it was released just a couple of days ago. So take a look, because this is another phenomenal testament to everything that everyone is doing on behalf of coaching. And those numbers are impressive. And because of that, we are gaining a very different voice. Another anecdote about this time Magda pounding on a table several years back. I said, I want us to be at Davos. Well, we're working on it. We're working on it. And maybe not next year, but maybe next one. We're going to be on that main stage in Davos. So I'm super excited about that. World's largest community? Absolutely. And, you know, I will just end with and close with what Dory was talking about, creating content. So this is what we're trying to do for all of you. We're doing a lot of research. We curate a lot of research. And it is academic research, it is industry research, it is our own membership organization research. And that all this information is available to you, and you can certainly use it in however it best fits the needs of you and your client. She was talking about this credibility and That was such a beautiful testimonial, not planned, about credibility being that of being an ICF member, an ICF credential coach. But that's partly why we are spending a lot of resources on our credential being as, stringent as it is, because we just want you to have this instantaneous credibility because of your accomplishment as a professional coach. And finally, the network. Well, you have only 50,000 best colleagues and friends around the globe, and don't be shy to reach out. I love that slide about the partnerships with different chapters, not only in the US but around the globe. That's brilliant, and that's what I think suggests that we can learn from each other rather than trying to reinvent the wheel ourselves. And okay, one last one. When I talked recently with Tom Kolditz, by the way, every last Friday of a month at 11 o'clock Eastern Time, we're doing LinkedIn Live. And I have some amazing guests coming to it. Ms. Janet will be my next guest on that one. So in closing, I asked Tom, I said, so what do you think? What's the future for coaching? Don't forget, he's retired, but he is four-star general, so the responses are often crisp. He goes like, oh, it's brilliant. Okay, why do you think so? And he looks at me, shrugging a little bit, and he said, because it works and because it's needed. Exactly. So, thank you.